I'm Terry Cinsalo, president of H&S Financial Services. I've been helping and serving women in the Wisconsin and surrounding areas for over 27 years. We're focusing on income planning, your retirement roadmap, if you will. And I'm super excited and passionate to help women with these strategies and concepts. And I'm pleased that you're on this webinar tonight. I don't care if you're married, single, divorced, or widowed. I think you're going to see value here tonight. I think if you can walk away with some ideas and concepts that'll help you, wonderful. And I have a couple of questions that I want you to be able to answer. Do I know exactly where my retirement paycheck is going to be coming from in retirement? And I hope that you're not winging it on a hope and a prayer. The other question that I have for you is your lifestyle in retirement going to be the one you're accustomed to and the one you're desiring? And if you can't answer those questions, I think you'll see value here. So ladies, we're going to get to the webinar. It's going to be in listen only mode. It's going to be private for you. Okay. It's going to take just a couple of minutes for me to get the slides up, and we're going to get going with this information. All right. This is just a normal disclosure, not uncommon to have on any webinar. I just need to let you know that I am not an attorney. I'm not a CPA. I'm an insurance professional. And this presentation is intended to provide some general information on helping you understand some basic financial planning strategies. And we'll leave this here just for a moment so that if you are caring to look at this webinar slide, you can go ahead. As you know, we're doing the Women's Retirement Roadmap tonight. And, did you know that 90% of all women will eventually be solely in charge of household finances? To me, this is exciting. I try extremely hard to empower women around me in finance, faith, and health to be the best that they can be. Unfortunately, that can also be very scary for some. One of the reasons I do this very important workshop is because based on recent surveys, it was found that only 20% of women feel very well prepared to make wise financial decisions. If 90% of the women are going to be solely in charge of their finances, wouldn't you agree that you need to be 100% prepared to make financial decisions? When my grandparents were alive, my grandfather took care of all the family finances. He handled the checkbook, paid the bills, handled the savings and investments. He always told my grandmother she would be okay if something were to happen to him. Well, he went for a walk one day, had a heart attack, and didn't come home. My grandmother was devastated that she had just lost my grandpa. However, she didn't really have a handle on the finances. She didn't know where anything was. My uncle had to step in and help her locate the accounts and help her get her finances in order. And I'm sure that's not what my grandpa had intended for my grandma. But, she did live a nice life until she passed. I encourage you to at least be active enough in your finances to have an overview of where your savings and investments are at. I'm not saying women must be in control of all the household finances. What I am saying is that you should be involved. You must make sure your voice is heard. It is completely okay if you're married and you have a different investment philosophy. Women are typically more conservative investors than men. What you need to make sure of is that your financial professional that you're working with hears both of your voices. They must listen to concerns from both of you. And on average, women live 5 years longer than our men. Let's make sure both of your lifetimes are being planned for. There's a red button in the upper right-hand corner of the slides. Go ahead and click on that button, and that'll take you right to my calendar to schedule a 15-minute phone call review with me. When I retire, I envision going to Mexico a month a year. I envision being there because it's warm and it's cold here in Wisconsin. I see myself taking summer trips to Door County and traveling with my family and friends when the opportunities arise. I want to be available to spend time with my family, Kyle and Whitney and their families. I want to go when I want to go, and I want to rest when I want to rest. Now, take away all the thoughts and worries about money. I want to hear what kind of cool things that you want to do in retirement. What kind of lifestyle do you want to live? Sometimes when I ask my clients what kind of lifestyle they want to live when they retire, they really restrict themselves because they don't really know what the possibilities could be. If there is one thing I want you to take away today is the importance of having a written plan so you know the possibilities. Do not let your own fears keep you from living the lifestyle you always have dreamed of. Financial planning is often more important for women than men. Why? Because we live longer, right? What if you're left with a plan that doesn't really work? And ladies, here's a sobering statistic. The reality is that 80% of men are going to die married and 80% of the women are going to die single. If you share your finances with someone else, you need to start talking. This way, you'll know if you share the same goals and dreams for the future, as well as whether you're on track to meet those goals. Also, remember that disagreements are bound to happen. Good communication is key to working through those disagreements and getting back on track financially as a couple. If you're married, here's a couple of tips. Make sure you have an income plan in place that is designed to hope for the best, but plan for the worst. Make sure you and your spouse are open and honest with each other and your financial professional about your need for assets that do not lose value during market fluctuations. Make sure you both know your final wishes. I know it's not always easy or fun to talk about, but make sure you both have an understanding about the legacy you both want to leave. Make sure all your beneficiaries are set up correctly, not only the primary beneficiaries, but the contingent beneficiaries as well. Make sure you have someone do a Social Security analysis on you so you can see how to maximize both of your Social Securities with your overall retirement income strategies. This will become extremely important when one spouse passes and you lose that Social Security payment. Ladies, if we were sitting here face to face and I'd ask you a question, are men and women the same? You'd probably giggle a bit, but then you'd tell me some ways women are different from men. And when it comes to financial planning, we know that women worry more about money, don't we? We tend to be more conservative with our money. Women tend to be more emotional about their money, and men are more likely to die sooner. And women tend to avoid conflict when it comes to planning. I sometimes get the Georges of the world telling me that their wife doesn't handle the money and he's the decision maker. And I politely have to let him know that we're still going to need the Marys of the world to come into that meeting. After all, there's a great possibility that she's going to be left alone at some point when the Georges of the world pass on. I explain it's about making sure she can continue her life with the same lifestyle she has today. I don't want my clients to skip a beat financially when the Georges of the world pass on. I want to help every woman I can make sure that they have a written plan for income to keep coming in and that the Marys of the world will financially be okay. I have several clients that have actually come to me because they trust that I will take care of their wives after they're gone. And the income will continue as if they're still here with that proper financial planning for the future. I go through this not to bash men, but to prove the point that women are different from men, and it's okay. If we look at the statistics, we know that women tend to live longer. Like I mentioned, 90% of women eventually will be solely in charge of household finances. What you must be sure of is that your voice is being heard. Make sure that it's heard by your significant other and your financial professional. When I meet with a couple who are married, I always require both be there when we're making planning decisions. Those decisions affect both people, and it's important that both understand their plan and that they're comfortable with it. In addition to some of those things I've mentioned, if you're married, I want to stress that every woman needs a pot of money to call her own. No one wants to get a divorce or lose a spouse, but the reality is it can happen. So while you're married, make an addition to the joint financial accounts and set up your own savings account or maybe an investment. You can solidify the credit history by opening a credit card or picking up a personal loan. See, when Kyle and Whitney were 6 and 8, I found that I was headed for a divorce. It was really kind of scary when you start to realize how your assets are treated. The joint assets were frozen through the divorce process. Thankfully, I was independent and realized what was going on. I had my own credit card, savings account, and some investments along with my 2 children as a young woman. That has not been the case for some of my clients. They completely relied on their husbands, thinking they were going to be taken care of, and because they were the mother of his children, and then only to have him come home from work one day asking for that divorce, leaving them completely devastated, financially. Ladies, I think we all know of someone who this has happened to, and if you don't, you're very lucky. So not many people plan for divorce. Not many people even want to think of it as a possibility, but it never hurts to hope for the best and plan for the worst. We have encountered women who find themselves in the middle of a divorce without access to any of the assets because they weren't in her name. Therefore, it's important to maintain an individual credit history. Keep your financial records accessible and easy to gather when you need them. This could include personal savings accounts, annuities, insurance policies, retirement plan statements, income tax returns, funeral trust documents, and other financial documents. Keep a record of who owns these accounts and be sure to notify the person that is going to be handling your estate, where they can find all of these documents and who to contact when you pass. If you have served in the military, you'll want to have record of your DD 214 paperwork handy for the funeral director, as well as your Social Security card. And should you pass away and the EMTs will need to pick you up, they're going to ask your family for your driver's license. A couple of years ago, I met a gal and I got a phone call from her. And for privacy purposes, I'm going to call her Ann. I had never spoken to Ann before, but as soon as she spoke, I could hear from the panic in her voice. 6 weeks prior, her husband was at work and just randomly passed out. They immediately rushed him to the hospital and started doing all the tests. She told me how terrified she was when she arrived at the hospital and saw all the machines hooked up to him. He was the love of her life. He did everything for their family. They did get him awake, and she was able to talk about what had happened with him. They thought they were out of the woods until the doctor came back in with a somber look on his face, and the doctor explained he had a large tumor on his brain. She said she really wasn't sure what the doctor had said next, but the next words she remembered were this: "There is nothing we can do at this point." Fast forward 5 weeks later, her husband had passed away. And at the funeral, she was talking to one of my clients about how scared she was. She knew nothing about where their money was because her husband did all of that for her. Her friend gave her my phone number. Friends, I have to say that Ann was one of the bravest women I've ever met. She not only lost her best friend within a 5-week period of time, but she also lost the provider for her family, a husband, and the father of her children. Ann pulled together as many statements as she could find and walked into my office and dropped them on my desk. This is where we started her journey to become financially confident and in control. We have a couple of clients who have come to us with their spouse when their spouses have passed, and they need help picking up the financial pieces and putting those pieces together. These are women who have lost the loves of their lives, their husband, their father, or their children, who in many cases have been the sole financial provider and had the primary manager position on all the financial matters. Usually the first visit to my office is them bringing in many statements as they can find, and that's where we start the journey to become financially confident and in control. Every single one of you on this webinar, whether you are married, divorced, widowed, or single, should be financially empowered. Tonight, I'm going to give you some tips and ideas that will hopefully help you feel that way. I want you to wake up every morning and have the biggest worry in retirement to be, should you go to yoga or out to coffee with your friends, or do you want to go out to the garden and plant? Today, I'm going to show you some strategies that I will go through with my widowed clients to help them get back on track financially. Don't worry, we will have time to sit down and speak one-on-one about all the different strategies we discuss. Just jot down any questions that you may have, and I can answer those questions when we get together. I want you to be 100% empowered in your plans so that we know what your future holds. Okay? One of my primary concerns in retirement income, if you do not currently have a written income plan, and our clients end up with a plan like this, it's a written detailed plan. I would recommend that you schedule so we can get one of these out to you right away. Because when it comes to your retirement, the cash flow or your retirement income streams that you have coming in every single month represent lifestyle. Many of you on this webinar tonight have grandkids. What do you like to do with them? Go to dinner, go to movies, take trips. Gals, this is called lifestyle. My mom and my daughter like to take an annual summer getaway trip. This is lifestyle. And in retirement, reduced income can be a detriment of that type of lifestyle you live. If you have uncertain income, you'll likely have an uncertain lifestyle. So we spend a great deal of time and effort helping our clients create strategies designed to help protect those income sources so that you can feel more confident in the income they'll be generating in the days ahead. So let's take a look at what I call the three-legged stool of retirement income planning, or perhaps more appropriately put, the three-legged stool that was. Now, this is how many of our parents retired. When our parents retired, many of them had a pension. For some of them, they received the standard pension for life, a pretty vanilla assurance that they'd receive level income checks each month as long as they lived. For others, they even received a step-up cost of living adjustment pension, and this was kind of like the Cadillac plan. So now some of our parents might have had life-only pensions that only paid out for their lifetimes, and some may have had spousal benefits that continued paying out 100% of the benefits as long as their spouse was alive. Since Ann's husband was still working, he had not selected any type of pension option, and that we found out his pension did not pay out in the event of his death, because they had never sat down with a financial professional who specialized in retirement planning. They had not read the fine print and they hadn't created any alternative plans. We always hope for the best, but plan for the worst. Now, you may have a Social Security. Now, how long were pensions designed to last? Well, for life, right? And how long was Social Security intended to make payments to them? Well, the rest of their life. And to provide a portion of income throughout retirement. And then they had personal savings they had accrued by the third leg of the stool. That could be savings accounts, 401ks, after-tax dollars, those kinds of things. Now, the idea was that they'd have two legs of the stool that were considered predictable sources of income, the pension leg and the Social Security leg, and one leg that was the responsibility of both the individuals. But how has that changed over time? Well, let's take a look at it. The three-legged stool that is. First, what happens when a lot pension plans today? What have many of the companies done over the years? Well, starting in the 80s and 90s, many employees actually started giving feedback to the companies and saying, hey, instead of putting money in my pension where it's earning very little interest, I'd rather you put that into my 401k where I have an opportunity to earn more interest. Because remember, the run in the 80s and the 90s, it was very, very strong, wasn't it? And people assumed that the run would continue forever. Not much different than what's been going on currently with the markets and their all-time highs. Many companies, on the other hand, were probably saying, Things like we don't really like the notion of pensions because as the labor force continues to grow and people's lifespans continue to get longer, we're trying, we're tying ourselves to some serious financial obligations that we're going to have to pay out over an unknown number of years. So we would love to transfer the burden of this away from us and over to you, the employees, and just start offering some company matches into things like 401ks. So many companies slowly started doing just that, doing away with the pension and offering company matches, which many of you likely have participated in over the years. So looking at our graphics here, you can see the pensions went away and basically personal savings legs in retirement doubled up. Meanwhile, let's look at the Social Security. How many of you feel like Social Security is currently on perfect, solid ground today? Okay, how many of you think Social Security is somewhat on shaky ground? Sure. Now, there's a great deal of speculation right now about the future of Social Security, and many of you have likely heard that to remain sustainable, Social Security will likely have to reduce benefits at some point in the future. Here's the deal. None of us are psychics on this webinar. But if you think about the politicians and the lawmakers who will be passing any legislation that could possibly reduce senior Social Security benefits, what are those folks' number one job? Well, many of you would argue those individuals' number one priority or number one job is to get reelected. And if that's the case and a large number of the vote continues to come from the senior population, how likely do you think they are to pass legislation that will affect seniors presently? Now, could they certainly pass laws to enact such change down the line and to keep the program sustainable? Absolutely. And again, none of us knows the future for certain, but the likelihood that Social Security benefits will be reduced in the very near future isn't super high. So back to the stool. The bottom line for most of us is we don't have a three-legged stool anymore. We have a two-legged stool composed of Social Security payments and whatever personal savings we've been able to accrue. So our retirements are effectively sitting on the certainty of the two-legged stool. So how do we fix that? Well, the bottom line is this. For many of you here today, you've likely spent 30, 35, even 40 years putting decades of hard work and effort into savings for this chapter of your life. For all of those years, a paycheck has been dropping into your account every few weeks. And for the most part, for most of you, you've been able to absolutely rely on it for paying bills, enjoying hobbies, eating out, or going in some form of entertainment gathering, for going on trips and seeing family and friends. And in retirement, one of the biggest concerns many people coming into my office have is simply this. I've spent all these years with paychecks being directly deposited into my account. But when I retire, we're going to have a nice party and celebrate all of those years with the company. And then 2 weeks later, when the check would normally come, it's not going to. And at that point, the checks are going to be on me. The checks are coming from, we faithfully have put away all these years, and I have little to no clue how to manage it. I have no idea where the draw from, and I don't know how much I can afford to take or even how long it will last. I don't even know if it'll last as long as I do until I pass. Oh, and many of you, ideally, you'd have some money, you'd like to have some money left over to leave the grands. Ladies, I've been doing this for 27 years, and all that time I've never understood how anyone could truly retire without being very confident about where their income in retirement is going to come from. Again, your lifestyle in retirement and in that sense, income is the outcome. So I'll just ask you, how many of you have a written retirement income plan in place at this point? I'm not talking about a collection of retirement I'm not talking about a collection of retirement income sources. I'm talking about a detailed written retirement income plan that, number one, is going to show exactly where those sources are going to be tapped into. Number two, in what order. And number three, what amounts over what periods of time to help your retirement lifestyle from being disrupted. So if you don't do anything else after tonight, if you don't even end up working with me, and the only thing that we can do for you is to complete a written retirement income plan for you so that you can walk out of our office with greater confidence in your financial future. Please don't leave the webinar tonight without scheduling that review, because retirement without retirement income is like no retirement at all. So go ahead and click that red button and go ahead and schedule a time with me. And back in 2008, I had a woman who attended a workshop. I could tell that she was pretty well-to-do by her Louis Vuitton purse and her well-manicured nails and her expensive taste. She had done very well for herself. After the workshop, she had decided to come sit down with me just to get a second glance or opinion of her portfolio. See, she had been working with the same financial advisor for almost 15 years. She loved him. Most people I meet with do have a financial professional, and I don't mind. I'm not here to break up relationships. I'm here to empower you and bring you confidence. See, she told me that her goal was to get her portfolio to $1 million. She was currently at 960,000. She had been working hard and was very, very good at saving. It also helped that we were in one of the largest bull markets, and it had performed very well for her. She was with a year or two of retiring. We had discussed the rule of 100, a general planning rule where you take the number 100 and subtract your age, and the remaining number represents the percentage of retirement savings that should be allocated to risk. With this rule in mind, we discussed that the percentage of her assets allocated to risk was significantly greater than the rule would dictate. We also discussed that if she wanted to bring her retirement savings more in line with the general rule of 100, we could discuss solutions, including annuities. And that should a market correction occur, we would provide protection from losses due to market volatility. She thought the market was her best way to reach that $1 million mark. So she told me she wanted to wait to discuss any alternatives until she got back from vacation. I called her again when she got back, and she said she really didn't want to make any changes at this point. She wanted to hit her goal. I kept in touch with her, and it wasn't until March 2009 that I got a call one day from her. Does anyone remember what happened in the late 2008s to March of 2009? Yep, the market dropped over 40%. Do you know her 960,000 had dropped to a little over 600,000? She was in tears. She couldn't take it anymore. She had lost so much that it was going to start changing her lifestyle in retirement. Ladies, I don't know if you're aware, but we're in one of the longest bull runs in history. And for many of you, the long bull market run may have caused the balance of risk versus protection to be thrown off balance. If you want to discuss adding assets that provide protection from losses due to market fluctuations to your retirement income plan, so that you have more confidence knowing that you won't have to change your lifestyle in retirement, please schedule for a complete risk analysis. Part of that review that we'll do for you in a written plan like this is a discussion of where you fall with regards to rule of 100 and your general risk versus protected assets. For the first time in history, we have a new generation out there. It's called the sandwich generation. This is when you could be taking care of aging parents, but then you also may have kids that have never left home or have recently come back home. Sometimes we get so focused on planning for our own retirement that we don't stop and think about all those things that come up around us. Like so many of you on this webinar tonight, we as women are faced with these challenges frequently. My dad is struggling with Parkinson's and dementia. My sister and I help our stepmom with our dad weekly, whether it's sitting with him so she can run some errands or just catch a break, or maybe she needs some help with some household chores. And then there's my daughter, Whitney, and she has myasthenia gravis. There's trips to the hospital at times. There's help with daily activities when she's not able. Whitney's disease, well, you never know if she's going to have a good day or a bad day. And at times you can feel like you're on call and you have no idea when you're going to get that call for help. Thankfully, most recently, she's done really well. She's almost into remission. As women, we just make it happen, don't we? There are 5 criteria for your financial professional. Number 1, they need to listen and listen openly and honest with you. And they need to respond in a timely manner and get back to you. And they need to speak clearly and explain things in a manner that's simple and easy to understand. And ladies, they need to create a written retirement income plan and to get with you regularly to review it. Does anyone have one of these in their home? It's okay if you do. I have a couple in my home. Have you ever tried cleaning these things out? I cleaned mine out a couple of weeks ago, and this is what I found. I didn't really get to throw anything away, not much at all. I needed almost everything in that drawer. I did get to consolidate some things, and I grouped all the pens together and put a rubber band around them. I got a little container and put all those little paper clips in place. I found a couple things that I'd been looking for forever. And the good news is I knew exactly what's in that drawer now, and it's completely organized. I tell you this for a very good reason. Remember Anne, when she came into my office when her husband passed away, she had went to the file cabinet in their home, a couple of different drawers, and even the glove compartment of her car to find everything she needed for us to tell her if she would be okay financially. You cannot have your finances look like this junk drawer. You need to know exactly where everything is and how it works together. If you don't currently have a written retirement plan that is all put together for you personally, and I don't mean a retirement portfolio and a bunch of files. I'm referring to a collection of accounts and account statements like Ann, but to have a clear and concise written income plan, a physical document that you can hold in your hand that details exactly how you're going to tap into these various assets to wisely leverage them to help ensure that they last as long as you last, regardless of the markets. If you don't currently have such a thing, please do not leave here tonight without scheduling a time in the next 2 weeks to meet over the phone or in person, because at my office, no client of ours walks out the door without one, because simply put, retirement is too important. Far long awaited to sit around wondering about your retirement income strategy. Ladies, if you're married, you may want to have your husband on the call. I highly recommend that you do. You see, if you like what you're hearing, our next step will be to set another appointment. And on that appointment, we'll put together a written income plan that will take care of you once he is no longer with you. The last thing I want for a client of mine is to be concerned about their income plan at that time of loss. I have worked with many couples that come to see me because the husband wants to make sure that the love of his life is taken care of upon his passing. Whether you're married, single, widowed, or divorced, ladies, you owe it to yourself to make sure you have a written income plan in place to do what you want with that income plan that doesn't look like a junk drawer. This, ladies, is not a written income plan. Or do you want a written plan where you know exactly where that paycheck is going to come from and you know exactly what account it's going to come from? This is what we do with our full income retirement planning strategies. You have spent 30, 40 or more years working and saving for retirement. You have the systematic collected a paycheck in your working years. Let's make sure you can continue the lifestyle that you want in your retirement with consistent income, so you know where your next paycheck is going to come from and you can enjoy your life with your family and friends. You can do the things that you want to do when you want. Take your trips, go out to dinner, spend time with the grands, or do whatever it takes that makes you happy. Go ahead and click on the red box in the upper right-hand corner to schedule that 15-minute phone call with me. And when you come into the office and we do a written income plan for you, we'll show you your income strategies. We will then prepare a Social Security analysis so you'll be able to maximize your Social Security payments. We'll look at your money at risk versus your safe money, and we'll see if you're following true Rule of 100 and if you're not in alignment with Rule of 100. And if you want our help, we'll try to help you fix it. And we will take and talk to you about your legacy and funeral planning. We help our clients with a holistic approach to planning for their retirement future. Ladies, I look forward to talking with you in the future within the next 2 weeks, and you have a great rest of your day.